Hi, that T fella person. Hi, I am going to make a quick video response to your transgendered issues. I'm not actually transgendered myself, and despite the fact that I'm sitting out here in my field rocking no hair, I'm not gay either. I identify myself as female and predominantly heterosexual, and whatever authority I might have on this subject stems from what's currently asleep in that little farmhouse right over there, which is my 17-year-old son, Logan, who was born female and who years ago transitioned from female to male. And yeah, so he's my little transgender boy. And so that's where I get whatever expertise. And frankly, if I'm shocked at the idea that anybody in the transgender community would say that I, as a cis female, or okay, I'm a little weird because of the short hair or whatever, the no hair, have no authority or ability to add anything to this. You know, your loved ones, your parents, have nothing to add to your life experience and nothing to. Either way, I agree with you, T person. So the one thing I wanted to talk about, I can't say very much about transgender versus transsexual people. You know, my son will eventually have a mastectomy, but that doesn't make him special because cis male boys at that age can grow breast tissue too and end up having to have it removed. That's, like he's not comfortable with having breasts right now, but I think it's something, I wasn't willing to do it before. He has to wait till he's 18. And that has to be something that he gives himself. Sorry, we have a So, yeah. The thing is what I wanted to talk to you about was question number 2 about, will you get off my notes, bad cat? Bugger off. Okay. You were talking about subjective reality of your gender identity. And the thing is that it's not subjective at all. It's absolutely objective. We've all seen these, heard of, we have the internet. We know that, a little girl goes in, because she never gets her first period, and they do an ultrasound and they find testicles inside of her because inside all of her junk is male. She was just intersexed at birth and was misidentified as female, or, somebody who has full penis and what appears to be testicles, but, it just doesn't work out, and then they find out there's a uterus in there. We know that physiologically the gender lines can get crossed. We know that. That's not a fact. What I don't understand is people who are trying to say that gender identity is subjective. It's not. My brain is not like the brain of a man. I don't process things like different parts. I don't have the same number of axons or dendrites or whatever. I have thicker parts of one part of the brain and thinner parts of another and more connections in certain areas than a man does. I see my reality through the eyes of a woman because my brain is female. My son's brain is not and has never been female. So it's not like you can turn around one day and say, I decide right now to be transgender. What you can do is decide, right now I want to wear a pretty dress. Go right the fuck ahead. Why not? But that's not going to make you transgender. It is an absolute, to me, objective fact that there are people who are transgender. That gives some people the authority to say, nah, kid, you're playing at something you don't really understand. Because if I took a brain scan of you right now, there's not going to be anything different from your brain from any other man or any other woman, which is your original identified gender from birth. You either are the same as everybody else or you're not, like my son. So there is, I do believe, a legitimate way to say someone is or isn't transgender, The problem is that for so many of them, like, you would not believe the shit I have eaten in my life for allowing or encouraging my child in this. Like I had a fucking choice. You get the kid that you get, and you have to raise them to be the happiest and best person that they can be. My son also happens to be pretty massively autistic. 17 years old, he gets lost at Walmart. You're gonna find him hiding under fucking dog food, it's, I have a lot more problems with the issues I have to deal with autism than I ever have to deal with transgendered issues, I've known since he was very young that first off, he would talk to trees, but not to people. And that, that he was different, that this was not a right, proper little girl. It became quickly apparent that this was a little boy. And so I just waited and bided my time, and I let him cut his hair short, and, you know, I waited for him to understand it himself. And then I was like, yeah, well, shocker, I already knew. It's no big deal, you know? Like, as for systematic forms of oppression, I'm worried about when my son grows up. Now, luckily, I'm Canadian. So, as far as I know, he's not going to have any issues if his birth certificate should still happen to say female and he wants to marry another woman. But I know there are a lot of places where all of a sudden you go to get your driver's license, you know, that kid that they told, you know, you're getting your driver's license photo and he can't wear makeup. I can go in there looking like a frickin' juggalo if I want to because I have tits and a uterus, you know? Why the hell not? But whatever. Seriously, have you seen some of these women, the way that they're wearing their makeup these days? This definitely counts as disguising your actual looks. Either way, as for, okay, going to a female prison if you're, like, identify as female. Now, that's a hard one for me because, on the one hand, once you become a ward of the state, they are responsible for your overall health and welfare and well-being and stuff. And on the other hand, my ex-husband went to prison. And it's not supposed to be a good time anyway, and it's not like being male and cis male protects you from what abuses you may suffer in that sort of situation anyway, you know, like, but that doesn't mean that somebody who is going to have a target on their back for that sort of victimization should just be thrown in there with no consideration either. I just really pray that this is nothing I never have to deal with in my family. And as for society as a whole, you know, like, I mean, I don't want to say put them in segregation or something, but god damn, you can't just throw them in. You can't throw, you know, a person like my son, who technically has a vagina and may end up actually keeping the vagina while being, you know, it might still be there. He may not have that shit closed up. He may decide not to. There's so many different options for the reconstructive surgery and what it is you can do, you know. Franken penis versus the grow your own variety, and I have had to do so much research, it's crazy. The point is that if he ever did something unconscionable and ended up in a prison environment, if his birth certificate has been changed to male and stuff like that, but he literally has that pocket of flesh on his body, ooh, that's going to be terrible, you know? That's the only kind of systematic, you know, forms of oppression that I could see. The cat's back. You know, as to hermaphrodites, well, I talked about that a little bit before. It's not a real trans because trans means you're moving from one to the other. Everyone thought Logan was female. Logan, you know, was given Barbies until he was 10 years old. He decapitated them and kept all their little limbs in boxes under his bed. I'm not supposed to know about that. Either way, I think he was just bitter at always getting fucking Hello Kitty shit. Some certain in-laws were deeply under the impression that they could, you know, nip this in the bud by getting him pink shit. So, a hermaphrodite, I mean, I figured if Logan had been born intersexed, as in, like, you know, hermaphroditic or confused genitals or whatever the hell it's called, I probably would have raised him as just Logan or whatever, and then waited until he declared his gender. In the end, that's pretty much what happened anyway. Somewhere between 3 and 5, children just realize what gender they are on the spectrum. Well, not spectrum, but you know what I mean. They say, like, I'm a boy because I have a penis and I'm going to grow up to be like daddy. Well, my daughter did that. And everybody's like, oh, don't worry about it, it's just a phase. First off, I wasn't worried to begin with. And second off, it wasn't a phase. It just kept going. It never ended. It still hasn't. It won't end because he's not female. He's a male. Yeah, number 7, you said, should you avoid pronouns completely? I don't know. I guess you just ask. I mean, there's been a couple of times I can tell people because, you know, Logan's got the breasts now. It was easier when he was 11, 12, 13, flat as a board, and everybody was just like, oh, hey man, how you doing, little dude, you know? Now he has to walk with his shoulders hunched over, and you can tell he's embarrassed by it. But you know what works really well? Just for a temporary fix, because you can't do it all the time, but a cheap-ass back brace. It makes it nice and flat. We figured that out on our own. We were very proud of it, but you can't do that all the time, because apparently you can deform your ribs. Either way, until he gets the mastectomy, that's what we do when we want to go out for a short period of time. It's not an everyday thing. Don't get on my case. I would just ask. Like, I've had people been kind of like, they come up to me and they're like, "Is that is that your son or your daughter?" It's like, dude, don't. It's complicated, but that's my son. They're all my sons. I have 3 boys actually. So, what else did you ask about? I don't know if as to if they're representing themselves as a specific gender. Obviously, I mean, if it's a dude with a beard but he's wearing a really kickin' fucking dress and, you know, long hair and heels, I'm gonna call her. You know what I mean? I don't care about the beard. He's obviously fully, you know, and he'll correct me. I have faith in people's ability to be like, no, please, just, you know, him, her. Oh, sure, dude, no wonder. It's not a problem. Just, you know, you kind of threw me with the beautiful dress. You know what I mean? Like, just be accepting and just ask, just interact. I don't know. Other kin. Yeah, well, like I said, it's subjective mentality. Other kin people do not actually have fucking panda brains or dragon brains. These are people who are looking for a sense of escapism, but we don't escape gender ever. None of us do. Even people who feel intergendered. Like, I'm probably a significantly more masculine woman than most women are, but I'm still somewhere in between male and female. I'm not off in fucking sparrows or roundworms or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I talked about it before. It's an objective reality, and you can't objectively have fucking, you could have a dragon soul. Sure, fine, but that doesn't make you a dragon. That still makes you a people with a dragon soul, you know? What do we do for more educated and accepting? You know, my son will let you know what to do. I've raised him to understand that not everybody's going to get it right away. Not everybody's going to accept it right away, but he knows what he is. I know what he is. The people who are important love him and accept him. And you know what? He has only opportunities to educate and share. That's it. I actually worry about him going off to like college someday if I can never get him to go back to school. Oh, that is one thing I wanted to say. I live out in the middle of buttfuck Ontario. I mean, small town. Look at that. Look, there's nothing here, right? And when my son started the local small, you know, rural little high school, these people were the bomb. 10 out of 10 would send a transgender child again. They got him unisex bathrooms, but did not make it specific for him. Any child was welcome to use the new unisex bathrooms if they felt like it. They registered him under his assumed name, not his birth name. They went to all the teachers, explained the situation. Nobody ever called him by his biological name or referred to him by his biological gender the entire time he's there. I'm talking teachers, staff, and students. All of them were incredibly supportive, and just a real shout out to Rockland Public High. They did everything they could. I'm sorry it didn't work out, but that was once again on the, you know, on the end of the autism issues. You know, it was just too loud and busy for Logan, but they were fantastic. That's what you can do. It's just not that big of a deal. You know, once you start whining and crying and making problems where ones don't exist yet. And I'm not saying that it's perfect, because I know when my son goes out there, there's a significant chance that somebody might physically harm my child because of the way he is, because of their ignorance, their fear, and their disgust for the way he is. And that kills me a little bit every day. But sometimes, I mean, I watch what you were saying, and this is why I made this video, is if everybody could be like you and at least be willing to fucking learn and to try and not allow a minority that has no right to speak for the entire community I'm not even a part of, but I'm intellectually enough, I'm smart enough to know they have no right to make those sorts of pronouncements or judgments. If you allow people like my son, and maybe a little bit like myself, just to let you know how it works and what happened and, you know, how we live and stuff, to, you know, like the way that you that you went from being like, what the fuck is this, to your second video where you were like, shit man, I can't lump all these, I've met some really cool people now, you know, I'm not lumping them all in, there's just a certain small sub-faction. You gotta understand there's those sub-factions in all, you know, I worry about them getting their claws into my kid, but fortunately with the autism, Logan knows what he is, and he is not easily influenced by bullshit. Nobody's going to be able to tell him he's a victim of something he's not victimized by, you know, and nobody's going to be able to tell him to get over something that he has no need to just sweep under the table. Nobody's going to be able to victimize him, on the other hand, either, without him calling them out on it, because he sees the world in far too black and white a way, which is ironic because everyone talks about it being gender dysphoria or gender confusion. Logan ain't ever been fucking confused a day in his life. He gets confused by other people, but he is not confused by himself. We went to that diversity clinic in Ottawa. It was weird. They're like, well, how long have you been confused about your identity? And Logan's like, never. What? You know? So I don't know. It's just, I guess that's pretty much all I wanted to say as to a gender reassignment surgery being taxpayer funded. Yeah, I'm fucking Canadian. Of course it should, you know. We're not fucking barbarians here. What are we, like, you know? Socialized medicine is the way the world works. It's the proper way of doing things. We are, you know, everybody throws a little bit into the pot, and if my kid falls out of that tree because he built a fucking fort up there and breaks his arm, I don't have to lose the house. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the best way for it to be. And same thing for a mastectomy. If he was male and had to have, well, biologically male, excuse me, and had to have gynomastic breast tissue removed, would you say, oh, well, that's cosmetic? You know, well, it's not my fault that your 12-year-old grew a little set of bitch tits because he had a hormone flux and they never went away. You know, that's not fair. That's, you know what I mean? If you would do it for a little boy, you should do it for my little boy too, because they're both in the same situation. By the way, this is getting way too fucking long. Alright, I'm gonna let you go. Hopefully I answered some of your questions, and even though I'm not, you know, part of the LGBTQ community myself, I do believe that I have absolutely a right to comment and to have opinions and to join in the discussion, as do you. Bye.